Hello, everyone. This is MC Deck Discussions, and I am Abhi Small. And today I have my top 10 card types. So I've changed this a little, or quite a bit actually. So when I finish a hero, I should finish saying this top 10 card types to add to a Silk deck. So in the past, uh, what it's been at least a couple of heroes now. When I've done this, after I finish playing all aspects or doing a deck discussion on all five aspects for a particular hero, I've been doing a top 10 cards to add to that deck, but I decided to change it to card types instead to make it a little bit of a different discussion and to be able to include more cards, more like in categories instead. So with that in mind, these are going to be top 10 card types to add to a Silk deck. And let's start with those who didn't quite make it. So these are the number 10s, basically. So I have plenty of categories, and these are in different categories, but all of these would be ones who didn't quite make it. So I put them in this number 10. So the first one is Spider-Man. I'm going to have a hard time with this one. Pavitr Prabhakar. If somebody knows how to pronounce that, I don't know how you'd tell me, but maybe you could refer me to something I could see how to pronounce it. But in any case, he's pretty much my go-to web warrior in the justice aspect that I put in my decks. He's just fantastic for, as soon as you get out, you already have your hero who's a web warrior if you're going to be playing him in your deck typically. And then so when he comes out, at a minimum, he could remove 2 threat from a scheme, and then he could thwart for a third or, do 1 attack. But as soon as you have Web of Life and Destiny out, that's already a third one. So he could remove 3 threat from a scheme, and he could even do, and notice it's not a thwart. So, he can get around some of those obstacles that prevent you from thwarting. But then you could have more web warriors out. So he could do up to, if he's your third ally, right, then that makes 3, 4, 5 of them. So, he's very effective when he comes out. He can stay out for a couple of turns and defend, or even defend right away if you need him to. And of course, then you'd get card draw if you have the Web of Life and Destiny out. So I really like him a lot, but he didn't quite make the cut. We have some great new allies that have been added recently. Next one is Deft Focus. So I don't use this in very many of my decks, so I think I might use it in more of Silk's decks in the future. So I didn't use it until I did the pool aspect, and I really liked having this in. It was even better in the pool aspect because we could also use it for healing factor in the pool aspect, which is a 3-cost upgrade that every round at the beginning of the round, it heals your identity. So for 2, a heal of 2, so just a really great card. And so being able to trigger, to be able to decrease its cost because it's a superpower, but also Silk has, 5 events. So she has her 2 thwart events, and then plus her 3 attack events in her card, in her deck. So, her big attacks. So those are her swing Silk kicks. And then her, 3 of her upgrades, I think it is, also have the superpower trait, and especially her 2 most important ones, right? So we have both organic webbing and her, what was the other? And her spider reflexes so the organic webbing is the one that readies her and gives her 2 thwart instead of her 1. And then the other one, the reflexes, is the one she uses on defense, so she can keep having cards to tuck under her. So great. So Deft Focus, really nice card in that deck in particular that I used for pool. But I could see in the future me using this more often. And then next we have Quinn Carrier, and that is, so notice, remember Quinn Carrier, you can only play if your identity has the Avenger trait, and Silk does not. Silk is a web warrior, but there are times when I really want to make sure that I have a wild resource generator to be able to produce whatever I want. And so when that's the case, then I will usually bring this in by another means, which will be mentioned later on when we get to player sides games. But in any case, these are the 3 my number 10s. The rest of these are not in any particular order. I do have a little bit of a numbering system down at the bottom, so I know how far I've progressed. So this is, this is basically number 9, but these are not in a particular order. These slides are not in a particular order. So my top specific resource cards, other than the double, so that what that means to me in this case. And so that would be self-control in the pool aspect, right? Because this can be worth up to 3. And as the game progresses, it tends to be pretty easy to make it worth 3, but at least 2 resources. And specifically the mental resource, which will, bring up why specifically that one, but that one in particular. And then the Power in All of Us, usually 2 copies of that, because they're in a typical Web Warrior deck, you're going to have a lot of basic allies and another card, Ingenuity. So this card tends to be a pretty easy include in those decks. Next, we have, now we're counting down to number 8. Again, not in a specific order, basic Web Warrior allies. So we have Spider-Man, who tends to be in a lot of decks, tends to be the one that I value the most because he keeps readying a character, and Silk already can ready because of organic webbing. Then Spider-Man can ready her again. In some decks, it'd be more valuable to ready, or sometimes it'd be more valuable to ready another Web Warrior. Perhaps you want them to actually be defeated and be able to draw you a card. But I consider, even though probably Spider-Man is still maybe most valuable, but really in Silk's deck, I think Ghost Spider is a particularly important one because, when she gets defeated, right, has this interrupt. When Ghost Spider leaves play, search your deck for an identity-specific event and add it to your hand. And so there's a lot of flexibility in that, but especially near the end of the game when you get with those big attacks with the swinging Silk kicks, and because Silk can draw a lot of cards, suppose you already have a swinging Silk kick in your hand to do a lot of damage, this can get you another one. You can typically play 2 of them pretty easily in her decks. All right, down to number 7, compounding the card draw. So Silk has quite a bit of built-in card draw to begin with, but typically I like to throw in Nick Fury for that extra card draw, Moon Girl because the genius trait in the alter ego side for Silk, and then Face the Past. So this one might not be one that everybody would necessarily think of for Silk, but I definitely prefer facing her minion, her what do you call it, Nemesis minion, all by themselves, and and Silk can usually get rid of that Nemesis minion relatively easily. And so getting Face the Past to get 3 cards, help you with your setup, get rid of that Nemesis minion is really nice in that card draw. And so you can really boost the card draw big time. Next, down to 6, ways to flip to alter ego. Silk really loves to flip to alter ego because she has so many, that's where she can get her additional 2 card draw. And so that's an important aspect to the game when I'm playing Silk. And so one of those in particular, like this is an auto include for me in Silk's deck because I want to go to, or at least a very important inclusion, when I want to go to alter ego. So Not My Responsibility has this interrupt. It's not a hero interrupt, not like the original card that this improves upon, which is something responsibility. I can't remember what it's called because I never use it, a basic card. But Not My Responsibility, it's an interrupt. So first of all, it doesn't have to be in hero side, which is really important for going to alter ego. And then when any amount of threat would be placed on a scheme, you or your ally takes it as damage instead. So very flexible. And of course, in a deck such as this one, or I should say such as the Silk decks that I make, it might be that you'll use that damage to, say, defeat Nick Fury if you're on the alter ego side, or you might go for one of your allies, Web Warrior allies, in order to get some card draw if Web of Life and Destiny is in play. So I love that card here. Quick Quip, great one for Justice, right? It does have the requirement for the mental resource, but typically you can get a lot of mental resource cards in your deck to begin with when you're running Web Warriors as a whole. Hero action, deal 1 damage to a Web Warrior character you control. Place a total of 2 confused status cards on up to 2 enemies. And what's great about this is not only could you do that to up to 2 enemies, including the villain, but if you have a villain that has steady, it's not going to help with stalwart, but if they have steady, you can put both of those on the villain that has steady and go ahead and still confuse them. Because normally you need 2 confuses in order to confuse a villain with steady. Next, we have Professor X, pretty standard. I have Professor X is no surprise here, but I have him, I consider this to be kind of a more important card because in a lot of decks you can recur him. And so, in leadership anyway. And so he's one that you particularly want to get. He's particularly easy to get into play. Okay? Although Not My Responsibility is pretty great for that too, right? Because a lot of times I actually keep Not My Responsibility in my hand for a couple of turns, knowing that I want to go, if I don't go to Alter Ego side right away, and then that way when I do go there, I'll just keep it in my hand and keep that extra insurance. And then Under Surveillance, if I'm running Justice for sure, again, I want to go to Alter Ego side, and Under Surveillance gives you so much flexibility for that, increasing the target threat value of the main scheme by 4. So just a great card for that. All right, counting down to 5 now, some events. Across the Spider-Verse, I put down first because that tends to be just one that you want to make sure you don't forget. It can be easy to forget it. So just wanted to put that in here, but that's the one that you can get one of your Web Warriors back into play. And then Firepower. So when I played Aggression, I absolutely loved this card in Firepower. So she comes with her own weapon. It's easy to add other weapons to your deck as well so that you can increase firepower. So you can exhaust up to 3 of your weapon upgrades you control. For each upgrade exhausted this way, choose an enemy and deal 3 damage to it. This attack gains range. Just so nice, making it easier to just constantly deal damage throughout the game, not depend just on swinging Silk Kick. You can use it when it's on its lower end to take out minions, but as it increases its power, continue to do damage to the villain. Really nice. Make the Call, probably not a surprise here. Just great being able to get your allies back into play, whether it's a Web Warrior, whether it's Professor X, whether it's Nick Fury, and just highly effective. And then in this case, I put Suit Up last because I did consider it to be the most important card because there's so many specialized allies that you might want to choose from. And this way you can get them into play relatively early in the game. So I put Suit Up first in first place in this case. So that's it for the events. Moving down to number 4. So we have our player side schemes. So Lock and Load. So this one is meant to be in here to get the weapons out so that you can really utilize, what was that card that I mentioned a little bit ago? Firepower. So Firepower was that card that I mentioned. So in the deck when I'm running Firepower, I wanted to have Lock and Load in that deck to make sure it can get those weapons out. Build Support. So Build Support tends to be important when I want to get Quinn Carrier out. Mentioned Quinn Carrier is one of those 10 cards. So when I want to get Quinn Carrier into play, Build Support, plus then I have flexibility of getting, so I can, well, actually, I don't have flexibility. This could only be used if I want to get Quinn Carrier in, this is the only way to do it. And then Superpower Training. Don't use it in all the decks, but in fact, I don't use it in all of them, but every once in a while, I'll put it in the deck for Superpower. Like I like Superpower Training a lot, but I've found that it's a lot of times it was more effective to just wait and get out the Superpower cards. It gives you identity specific upgrade to put into play. And she has some really important ones, so I consider Superpower Training to be a great card, but the main thing is sometimes I just don't have room for it. The decks can just get too big too fast. And then Call for Backup. I put this in all of my Silk decks for sure when I get the chance to, of course, in Leadership. Being able to choose exactly which ally you want out can be really important. And we're going to get to some specific allies on number 1. Of course, there's always Nick Fury if you really need that card draw, but we'll see some other another ally choice when we get to slide number 1. All right, or the first, when we count down to 1. So now the supports. Web of Life and Destiny, of course, really the critical support that you want in play. But I put it first here because it should be no surprise to anybody. But the next two might not be things that people would think about. So Hangar Bay, when we get to the allies, we're going to see why this one's so important. So after an ally defends against an attack and is not defeated, exhaust this card and ready that ally. So there's a very specific ally I'm thinking of for this. So we'll get to that soon. And then Angel's Eyrie is a great card in protection for Silk, especially when she's using that defensive upgrade that I mentioned earlier, the Spider Reflexes upgrade. And so if she's going to be defending regularly, so after you defend against an attack, place 1 fatigue counter here, and then you go to Alter Ego, and you get this action. Once you go to Alter Ego, which you want to do frequently with Silk, remove each fatigue counter from here. Heal 1 damage from your identity for each fatigue counter removed this way. So really nice, so that Silk doesn't have to heal herself, or at least does it minimally. So that's it for the supports, right? And now we're down to number 2, the upgrades. So Ingenuity, I'm listing this one first because it should be no surprise that that would be included, right? She has the genius trait in the Alter Ego side, which is where you have to play this, but you can then use the resource here on either side. Skilled Investigator, great card, hard not to list this one, but I especially wanted to list this one in a Silk deck because Silk loves just compounding that card draw. And so Skilled Investigator allows that to happen even more. And then, but I listed Heroic Intuition second because I actually consider this to be more important in Silk's deck because she can be taken care of a lot of the thwarting, like maybe all of the thwarting once you get going, because once she gets her Organic Webbing out, she already has 2 thwart. Get this out, she has 3. Organic Webbing also readies her, so she can be thwarting for 6 thwart every turn. And if you have Spider-Man Peter Parker out, there's another ready. So that's up to 9 thwart each time. So she could be taking care of all of it for you at some point in the game, and everybody else, all your other allies, can be focusing on doing damage, get rid of those minions, start attacking the villain. And then Clarity of Purpose, overall, we in the Web Warrior kit, you might say, we don't have any true resource generators, so Clarity of Purpose becomes really important in Web Warrior decks. And then Ready for a Fight, I consider to be the most important card when, man, it was just so awesome being able to go anytime, pretty much anytime I wanted, get to Alter Ego side, be able to get some of that card draw, and then, you'll flip over if necessary. It's not always necessary, but you can have it out there and ready. And if necessary, be able to, when an enemy would scheme, discard Ready for a Fight, change the hero form, that enemy attacks you instead. All right, let's get to those allies. Okay, so Spider-Woman, fantastic new addition. Spider-Woman Jessica Drew, right? 1 thwart, 2 attack, 3 hit points, but here's the important part, not the shield part in this particular case, but the Web Warrior has this response after a Web Warrior ally, including this one, enters play, deal 1 damage to an enemy. So really nice every time you get one of those Web Warrior allies. So it's nice to stack your deck with more Web Warrior allies than maybe you might do usually, or maybe I might do usually, in order to continuously get that extra damage and try to keep her out in play. Maybe even put a healing card in play, into your deck to allow that to happen. And then once you get to protection again, Scarlet Spider, just a fantastic card in the Web Warrior decks. So when another Web Warrior character would take any amount of damage, Scarlet Spider takes that damage instead. Certainly you can use this on Silk, but you can also use it to keep Peter Parker in play. But also this next ally, Spider UK, Billy Braddock, just so powerful in these decks, and has 1 thwart, 2 attack, 5 health, and is a Web Warrior, has this interrupt. When Spider UK defends against an attack, deal damage to the attacking enemy equal to the number of Web Warrior cards in your you control. So that could be typically up to 5 then. So you can do 5 damage, and you do that damage first because it's an interrupt. So if you defeat your, say, a minion, so you can leave it out here to just take care of minions the whole time. You could defeat that minion and, be able to just have a Spider UK practically take no damage most of the time. but because he takes so little damage, a lot of times I'll use him to do a little bit of thwarting sometimes too. And then near the end of the game, he can really contribute to finishing off the villain. And then finally, what I consider to be the greatest. So this one's not a new addition, but still incredibly important. But to me, the best new addition, although these two others, Scarlet Spider and Spider-Woman, are fantastic too in their particular aspects. But Spider-Man 2099, just giving you more ability to be able to recur your allies. So 4 cost, expensive, but worth it. 2 thwart, 2 attack, 3 health. Has the aerial and web warrior traits. Has this response after Spider-Man 2099 uses a basic power, return a web warrior ally in play to its owner's hand, allowing you to trigger your Web of Life and Destiny to draw you another card. If you have Spider-Man Peter Parker out, you can use him to ready Spider-Man Peter Parker, Spider-Man Peter Parker can ready Spider-Man 2099 again, or Spider-Man 2099 can put Peter Parker back in your hand to be able to play again. So a lot of flexibility in this card and just a ton of fun. All right, so that's it for this. If you have any of your favorites that I missed or any of them that I mentioned in here that you particularly love as well, please feel free to comment, and I'll see you in the next video.